Let's start that. Okay. Let's move from that out. Right. Well, what I'll do is I'm sure some other people will come and join us. Well, actually, no, we're bang on. So I will give people just a minute or two. And I apologize to those people who sort of come on immediately. There's usually just that little bit of slow release, and then I will edit this afterwards.
I see Jesse.
Jesse's come through. Jesse, nice to see you. We hadn't get to talk, but I used to do a lot with Ross Bapu, who was one of your former colleagues. And Nick's just joined us in as well. Nick, welcome. Right, I'm going to say I think we're going to wait for other people to kick off as we come on. What I want to do is get the editing one. So let's start from that and I can edit us down. But everybody, thank you very much for joining, and particularly to the management team and to Rick for joining us from Vancouver. As would have been discussed on some of the further information. Okay, sorry, someone just saying missed message there from Jesse's comeback. Fox-Davies Capital is delighted to be acting as broker for CopperZone Resources' forthcoming admission onto the AIM market. CopperZone is a copper exploration company focused on Zambia. And I'm going to introduce in a second to Chris, who's the company's CEO, and to Paul, who's the company's chief explorationist, and to Sam, who's the company's CFO. But in essence, the company is seeking to raise between £5 and £7.5 million on a pre-money of £5.2 million. The company's been backed to date by a number of shareholders, but the largest group has been Sprott, and also by Rick Rule personally. Many of you will know Rick, who's been a prolific investor in the natural resources sector over the last 20 years and is well known for his various public speaking and webinars. And we're delighted to have Rick with us today. In order to give, I'm going to ask Rick to give an overview of why he's bullish on copper as an underlying commodity, why he's bullish on Zambia, and particularly why he's bullish on project generation companies, which is something that has a few companies in the North American and Canadian markets, but very, very few in the UK market. And we'll be delighted to supporting CopperZone in being amongst the very first to come over to that sort of model. What I propose to do is, I think actually the easiest thing to do would probably be to flip through, and rather than me talk about some of the copper slides here, I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with Rick a couple of weeks back where he outlined some of his views, which is available as a separate link on our YouTube page and on LinkedIn. But with Rick, if I can come to you first, it'd be just really useful for you to outline your current views on the market, and not only on project generations in Zambia, but also particularly your history with the company and with the management team, and why amongst all the companies you saw, you wanted to support this current team and these projects.
Well, I think, thank you, by the way, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of, not on behalf of CopperZone, but about my affiliation with CopperZone. That's a very broad question, so I'll try and break it down into digestible parts. I'm attracted to the copper business, both because of the increasing electrification of the world's economy. In particular, I would say, not necessarily from my point of view around electric vehicles, but rather from the point of view that 1.5 billion people around the world have no access to electricity at all, and 2 billion other people suffer from energy poverty, which is to say intermittent or unaffordable to them power. And I believe that electrification will reach everybody in the world in the next 10 or 15 years, and that the demand associated with urbanization and the increase in living standards of the poorest half of humanity will be the biggest driver of the copper market, which I think is a good thing for people in the copper business, but I think it's a good thing for humankind too. I'm more attracted to the copper business, I'm afraid to say, because I think that the last 25 years have seen a structural underinvestment in exploration and development in the copper space. most of the copper mines that the world lives on now are my vintage, which is to say very long of tooth. If you look at things like Bingham Canyon, 100 years old, Chuquicamata, 100 years old, Grasberg, 40 years old, these are mines that were often discovered in the 50s or 60s, built in the 70s or 80s, and they're continuing to produce copper for us. But the truth is, if you look around the world, particularly in view of the increasing demand for copper, and you look at the potential supply for copper out 10 years or 15 years from now, never mind that, out 5 years from now, I think in the face of even flat demand that we will have insufficient supply. So I'm bullish about the copper space. I'm bullish about copper too, because in my experience, large copper mines are, from an economic point of view, gifts from God. It's not uncommon to have a large copper mine make $1 million a day, which is a tidy sum. So the rewards for being right, irrespective of the market, are very, very, very strong. I'm attracted to CopperZone because I don't think that the bull market that we're in materials has spread generally to the exploration sector, except in response to those companies like Chalice, who have made a discovery and, of course, have shown the wealth creation aspects of a discovery. But in my life, much of the money that I've been able to spend and invest has come from being successful in exploration. And I would argue with you that, first of all, as this bull market matures, that the favor in the market will come down to exploration. And I would argue, too, that arithmetically, the best way to participate in exploration is through prospect generation. That is, understanding that exploration is more of a knowledge-intensive business than it is an asset-intensive business. What I have learned in my life is that prospect generators who don't issue shares to advance a property means that they don't dilute my investment in the intellectual capital. The heavy lifting around exploration is done by people who farm into the intellectual and commercial capital that's generated by prospect generations and their teams. As you can see on the slide, I think that's in front of you, as I look back 40 years, I've participated in about 40 public prospect generators. Forgive me if I'm off by one or two. 45 years is a long time. And as a consequence, I've participated in 26 economic discoveries and now 24 takeovers. That means that my success in prospect generation, looking back statistically over 40 years, is 1 in 3. In an industry where the success rate of advancing a mineralized anomaly to a mine is 1 in 3,000. Note the arithmetic difference between a 1 in 3 and 1 in 3,000. That really is, in a nutshell, what attracts me to prospect generation. What does a prospect generator need? Specific local expertise and specific deposit expertise. The prospect generator needs to have the respect of the industry so that third parties farm in. And that's the other unsung advantage of prospect generators. I'm less concerned about whether I like a prospect generator's property and much more concerned about whether the industry likes it. Some of the due diligence that I would normally have to do, or Sprott would have to do, has been done in this case, and it's been done by First Quantum, it's been done by BHP, it's been done by Rio Tinto. And importantly, that due diligence wasn't done by a broker trying to earn a fee or by a consultant trying to earn a retainer, but rather by a major mining company who did the due diligence in anticipation of writing a check. There is no more honest affirmative due diligence than somebody who, as a consequence of that due diligence, writes a $3 million or $4 million or $5 million check to advance a project that has been put forward by a prospect generator. So I hope that answers the very broad range of questions that you asked me, Daniel.
No, that is great, and I think extremely useful. And Rick, thank you very much for your time and input. What I would suppose is to do is with that, why don't I pass to yourself, Christian, and I will probably come back to you a little bit, Rick, later on for a couple of thoughts and comments towards the end, if I may. But if I move forward onto one slide here, Christian, if I could call upon yourself just to give it a bit of background and then take us through the presentation and introduce your colleagues, please.
Right. Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you, Rick, for that introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being on the call. I noticed we have one of our NEDs on the call, as well as some other Zambian explorers. Welcome to all. We appreciate it. It's an exciting time to be exploration company in Zambia and Sub-Saharan Africa, and we're glad you're on the call. Just to give you a bit of background on the management and directors of the company, CopperZone. We formed the company in 2008 and started operations in earnest in 2010. My background is I'm a former investment advisor in Canada, involved also in venture capital and angel investing in small and medium-sized companies. I was on the board of Scandinavian Minerals, a TSXV listed company that had the Kevitsa nickel project in Finland, and we sold the company in 2008 to First Quantum for 281 million Canadian. One of the co-founders and the chief geologist at the company is Paul Lemon. Paul has close to 30 years of experience in African exploration. He was key to the 4.3 million ounce Dugbe gold deposit in Liberia, as well as the Nyaleni gold project in Mali that was sold to Crystal River. So key to our success is obviously having somebody familiar with the African geology and exploration, and Paul definitely ticks all those boxes. The other member of our management team is Sam Legg. Sam has over 15 years of experience as a CFO of an exploration company listed on the TSXV. He oversaw various joint ventures that company had with Impala Platinum on projects in Ontario. So great experience managing and overseeing joint ventures. Finally, we have Rabi Kamkwamba, who's our country manager in Zambia, last but not least. He's the key person in the relationships that we have between ourselves and the Ministry of Mines and local governments in Zambia. So a key person and a key to our success in Zambia. The non-executive directors, Douglas Wright is the chairman. He has over 35 years of experience in the City of London as a broker and corporate financier. Most recently, he was the chairman of an AIM listed company, Kavango Resources, that is focused on exploration in Botswana. We have Ed Rochette as another NED. Ed is a lawyer based in Colorado. He's the former senior VP at Ivanhoe Mining, and very familiar with the global copper and gold exploration. He's currently an advisor to Robert Friedland. We have Jessie Lou Ernsting as another NED. She's a former analyst at Resource Capital Funds, so one of the largest resource funds in the world. She's on the board of a couple of exploration companies, and she's a professional engineer. So as you can see, with the management team and the non-executive directors that we have a great management. We have a great team managing the resources of the company and pushing the company forward. Experience in Africa, it's experience in exploration, a great network of contacts around the world, and also in the City of London. Next slide, please. Yeah, just to go briefly through this, if you go to the next, I'll go through the major shareholders. Sprott Global, 33%. We have Anglo Pacific that own 3.5%, and management and directors own just under 12%. Over the past 10 years of operations, we've had partners spend over $25 million on our projects, and we've raised about 6 million Canadian on those specific projects as well. We currently have a package of projects through Zambia, and we're looking to expand into Namibia and Botswana. The copper generator story is a story that should be of interest to investors. As Rick pointed out, the key for us and the key over the past 10, 12 years of operations is that all of these partners have performed due diligence on us. They've spent money on CopperZone projects. It adds certain value to the company by not diluting at the shareholder level, but at the project level. In other words, the 25 million that we raised ended up on the projects, spent on the projects, didn't dilute the shareholders that we have, and it's a business model we will continue to advance post our IPO. The other key thing to note is that it also validates the work that our geology team has done in understanding whether it's Zambian geology, but also Sub-Saharan geology. Paul has over 30 years of experience in Africa, and having partners such as these come in and approve of the early work that we've done and actually spend money over top of the projects that we've put together validates, I think, our business model and our understanding of Sub-Saharan geology. And as I said, we're looking to expand that into neighboring countries. The final point I would make is kind of to give you an overview of the history of the company. Starting operations in 2010, we were looking, the four of us, just looking to do the typical exploration, Canadian exploration story. We were in the copper belt, made applications through the Ministry of Mines, straight applications on licenses in the copper belt. We focused on 5 or 6 licenses at the time, and we were looking to raise some money, spend money, do some drilling, take the company public via a reverse takeover on the TSX Venture Exchange. Before we ended up doing that, we were approached by BHP Billiton, who were looking to option to acquire one of our licenses. They had just flown a Falcon survey over the country and approached us to say that we had a license of interest. So with the 6-figure sum that they gave to CopperZone, we were able to leverage that and do work on the other licenses that we had. So rather than diluting the shareholders, going public, etc., we used the money from our partner to advance the projects that we had at the time. What ended, as I described, it kind of snowballed from there. With the money that Paul spent on the other licenses, we were able to attract the other partners that you see on the list. MMG came in, Rio Tinto, Vale, and First Quantum over the course of those 8 years, to the point now where since 2016, we have Rio Tinto optioning to joint venture one of our projects, which is a package of properties just opposite the Kipishi mine in DR Congo. It's called the Kalindi project. So as you can see, we like to use the money that others give to us to advance the projects. The projects are run by those major partners or those partners. A typical option to joint venture is a 70-30 type of deal, where a partner will spend anywhere from $4 to $7 million over a period of time, usually about 3-4 years, in order to earn up to 70% of a project. We end up being free carried to that 70-30 point, the 30% being our part of the project, at which point it becomes a formal joint venture. So as mentioned, Rio Tinto have spent or are spending money on our Kalindi project, and we're hoping at the end of 2022 to have a formal result from their exploration work. So with that, I'll pass it over to Paul to describe our success and our projects in Zambia. Paul, next.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Daniel, for being our broker and hosting this session. Rick, thank you for your long-term support and your wisdom. And thank you to the guests that are here to hear the CopperZone story. So as Christian has adequately described, we've been Zambia focused since 2010, strictly as a project generator. That is our model. He's described it just perfect way. Zambia has increased its production from 2019 to 2020 by about 12%. And if you may have seen, there were elections in Zambia this past August that demonstrated tremendous democracy. And that government has seen what the contribution to the GDP is of copper. And so there is a big plan for big copper production. So we expect to see the numbers that you see on the screen to grow substantively. It's been a wonderful jurisdiction. I, as Chris mentioned, about 30 years experience across Africa, 26 countries I worked in. Prior to co-founding CopperZone with my team, I came out of West Africa, and I've had my experiences in DRC that were never very well. So it's delightful to be in Zambia. And as Chris mentioned, expansion into Namibia and Botswana. Next. Daniel. Thank you. So our portfolio at the current moment is that we have 11 licenses of our own, other than Kalindi. They're 100% owned other than Kalindi, which is an earn-in under the JV with the option to JV with Rio Tinto. 3 under option, so a total of 14 licenses in Zambia, totaling about 2,600 square kilometers. Next. Thank you. The Chimpantika project is very interesting. This is an example of project generation. It started with desktop studies, and then it followed up with archival research, all paper-based. And it's like digging gold nuggets or to find some of this interesting data. And what I found, to my surprise, was that there was presence of copper flower that was in one of the reports in the Chimpantika area, which is very northwest portion of Luapula province in eastern Zambia. My travel there witnessed the copper flower. It also witnessed stunted tree growth, which is a result of concentration of copper that stunts the growth of the trees. From there, I found a small-scale mine. This small-scale mine is exclusive to the Zambians, 5 hectare. They had high graded 800,000 tons over the years. It's actually in still current operation, 2% copper. And as we've seen, there's been grades up to 9% across this project. Next. What excites us about this project, the mineralization, is about a 40-kilometer fault line. The Kapula fault in the DRC, and the same fault is the Mwera fault in Zambia. The Kapula mine, that was former Moss and West, now Trafigura, and they announced it last month that they're taking it out of the mine out of care and maintenance and putting operations back on. As I ground truth that in the DRC, and you can follow very clearly the mineralization, and as it came into Zambia, a lot of artisanal pittings to the small scale mine. And then what excites us, and this was verified by our competent person, Mike Robertson, MSA Johannesburg, for the competent person report, is that mineralization follows a 14-kilometer strike length of this fault through our license. Our land package is 164 square kilometers. This project, we are very excited. Again, it was validated by MSA as a cornerstone project. This is a project that we plan to spend 1.6 million. My objective is by end of 2022 / early 23 would be to have a maiden resource. We plan to hit it with air core drilling and then follow on with RC and diamond drilling. And again, with the maiden resource, what I'm anticipating is that this will lead as project generation into a very good JV with a major, or the opportunity to sell it at multiples. So again, a project generation, but very exciting project. Next. The Kalindi project is the 7 licenses covering 645 square kilometer. This is an excellent example of project generation. We perhaps spent about $10,000, mainly desktop work, a little bit of ground truthing, and some regional geochem work. And it led to to date, $4.2 million investment. So $10,000 to $4.2 million with Rio Tinto since 2016. Now, in the last year, they've been hampered, of course, due to COVID issues, but the 2022 commitment from Rio, and you go to next slide, Daniel, is $2 million for next year, all principally core drilling. To date, they've drilled 142 air core holes. The air core is used quite widely across Zambia. It's easy to mobilize. It has a small environmental footprint. Yes, it has a limitation to 50 meters, but it's a great way to test what you've generated from the prior geochem and geophysics systemic work. What interests us is that the Phoenix style mineralization has been seen within the license package. And this is the same mineralization that has been seen at the Kapishi mine. We're excited about this project. And as Chris mentioned, 70-30 joint venture. If there's continuity, then we will need to contribute to 30% under a formal JV. Next. The Lumfwanyama project is 100%. Here's another example of project generation. As Chris mentioned, we had a 6-figure amount signing of the option with the JV with BHP back in 2011. We applied those proceeds to fly airborne suites, high resolution air mag and radiometric over a number of projects that we had in the Northwest Zambia and including this project of Lumfwanyama. That led then to investment in a JV with Rio Tinto up to 2017. They had the project for 5 years of very good systemic work. They drilled over 4,400 meters of drilling. There's copper in the system. And what interested us initially to get this project, and of course the subsequent JVs, was that it's on the eastern edge of the Lishwishi Dome. And the importance of domal structures in Zambia is that it contributes 75% of Zambia's production. Next. After the Rio Tinto, they had a capacity issue. The project came back to us 100%, and within weeks, we had entered into another JV with MMG. MMG were very excited about this because they had a project to the east, contiguous, that they had excellent drill results, and they felt that the whole area was a combined system, again, on the domal structure. But unfortunately, MMG globally pulled out of greenfields and they left Zambia in 2019. So the project again came back to us 100%. We're under an NDA with an interesting company. I won't mention, obviously, for confidential reasons, but they're reviewing the data that we think could lead to another JV. However, my plan is to take the data that we've received from Rio's past and MMG's of 2019 and do a compilation report that will target generation for drilling. We're also hiring a geophysicist who's well known in Zambia, one that we've used in the past, has a very good reputation, to undertake some 3D visualization and a number of different filters and a version of some of the geophysics of past, again, for target generation. The drilling to date across the area has been very much test drilling, and there's not been a proper gridded drill program. And so an example, the Chakwa prospect covers 25 kilometers, yet it's only had 4 drill holes. So this is an area that we will initially look at, but again, target generation coming from the work to be done in early 2022, post our IPO. Next.
Awesome.
The Kabwe project is of interest to us. We've actually historically explored in the Kabwe region. It's a former mining town, mainly of lead zinc. Somebody needs to mute. So we've entered into an option on this particular license. It's of interest to us in the respect that AIM listed Extract Resources has had some considerable intersections of high-grade copper at their Eureka copper gold project. The structure to which they're drilling into and having the great results, we believe, and it was validated by a third party into the license to which we've optioned. Now we have a fairly low line item budget from the use of proceeds for this, but it's largely to generate probably some aster work, to do some interpretation from that, some ground truthing, some regional geochem over this structure. And if we get the results, then we will be hitting it with drills and hopefully will generate results like we see here and lead to a JV. Actually, this area is of interest to Rio Tinto, and we've had discussions with them. Next slide. Balala Hill is one of the option properties from Horn Metals. We're interested in this because there's a regional shear zone, and this license straddles that shear zone. And to the northwest along that very same shear zone are 2 copper gold deposits that have a JORC resource back in 2012 of 760,000 ounces of a fairly decent grade of gold at 2.3 grams per ton. We're interested in this because of the Katangan supergroup, the metasediments, and some intrusions that we have knowledge of on the Hook granite. Next slide. What we know is that this shear zone covers an extent of that and geochem anomalies that have been conducted, that there's a strike length of 7 kilometers. Now it has been tested over about 3. We'll be doing some compilation work of the historical. The intersects are quite decent. They are lower grade copper, but they are also, in this instance, we plan on doing a compilation, target generation again, much like we're doing at Lumfonyama, and then we'll try to drill test the 4 kilometer strike length that has not been tested yet. Next slide. The Mwanga project is quite a large license. It lies in the big concession area, which is well known for its mineralization. It is considered probably in this part of Zambia is well known for its IOCGs. In fact, the old BHP license that we had was considered to be IOCG, iron oxide, copper, gold, from Falcon surveys. We're looking for some of that old data. Hopefully we'll obtain it, but we're certainly of interest in this project to exercise the option. It lies 25 kilometers from the Katumba deposit, which is 28 million tons of 2.2% copper. Again, there's Hook granite intrusions. This is a project that does interest us. We also know that First Quantum are looking in this area because of the Kudalunga carbonate rocks. And for First Quantum, it's been the carbonates, the dolomites, that have been their historical successes. Next slide. There's our total expenditure based on a full raise of, or on the low end of the £5 million raise that we're looking for. I won't go through everything line by line here, but the biggest expenditure, as mentioned, is the Chimpantika. We believe that we can come up with a maiden resource, and the plan then to leverage off that resource into multiples for the company and its shareholders. So I'm now going to turn it over to Sam to speak on numbers.
Oh, Sam's come back. Great.
I have come back.
I am going to spotlight you, and I apologize. We mostly use Teams, and I'm not an expert on Zoom, and I was trying to be clever, and I have a lot of people out there, but great.
Oh,
I can see you back from our other one, Sam. Please crack on.
All right, you can go to the next slide for me, please. There we go. Almost.
There we go. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sam Legg, and I'm the finance director here at CopperZone. I've managed remote accounting operations since 1993 in places as diverse as Santa Clara, California, Sao Paulo, and Moscow. And I've also been a public mining exploration CFO for more than 15 years. In both the high-tech and mining exploration industries, I've had extensive experience working in non-revenue generating companies, which requires a bit of a different mindset. CopperZone, as a project generator, tries to push as much exploration spend as we can back onto our property option partners, who are the ones, of course, with the deep pockets. Typically, we would only spend up to a few $100,000 on a property to ready it for option. What's not captured in our financials is property option partner spend, which has been about 25 million US since 2010, so around 2.5 million a year. Our G&A costs are kept very tight. We have nominal staff. There's only 4 of us on payroll in the entire company, including our Zambian country manager. Apart from the field office in Zambia, we all work remotely and have since 2010. The 3 of us on this call here, in fact, live in 3 different provinces in Canada. We also incur professional fees as needed and also make our marketing dollars go as far as possible by attending the most relevant trade shows, et cetera. Next slide, please. From a capital structure point of view, currently there are 26 million shares outstanding at a pre-money valuation of 5.2 million pounds. If we raise 5 million pounds at 20p, and after the conversion of a short-term note that we took out in order to undertake this going public process, we anticipate there being about 53 million shares outstanding. Currently, there are 2.5 million warrants. outstanding, all held by Sprott entities. They have a strike price of 65 cents Canadian, which is about 35p, and expire in December 2024. 5-year broker warrants with a strike of the listing price will also be issued upon listing. All of this will bring our fully diluted number to close to 58 million shares. At the bottom of the table is a summary of shares that will be issued in the few months subsequent to IPO to execute the property options and to settle some outstanding debts. Chris, I'll pass it back to you via Daniel.
Thank you. Next. Thank you. So thanks, Sam. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. So in summary, I think as you've seen, we've been able to interest all significant major partners in advancing CopperZone projects. The CopperZone, the spend has been over $25 million over the past 10, 11 years. And we've been in touch with several other major and mid-tier companies interested in coming back into Zambia and also looking at CopperZone projects. Paul described all the licenses we have and are currently looking at, and you have an understanding, given Rick's great presentation, of the uses of copper going forward. Key to remember is we have significant shareholders, including Sprott Global. Rick personally also has shares. Anglo Pacific in London have about 4% of the share capital of the company. And going forward, the plan post-IPO is to advance Chimpantika to get to a resource calculation by the end of 2022, advance another project, possibly Lufanyama, within 18 months to get to another resource calculation. And we're looking to expand within Zambia as well, acquiring projects through application or through low-cost acquisitions, and then expanding our business model and our footprint into neighboring countries with similar styles of projects, early exploration possibilities in Namibia and Botswana. As was mentioned, we're looking to raise between 5 and 7.5 million pounds with a current valuation of roughly 5.2 million pounds. So with that, I'll pass it back to Daniel, who's the moderator, and open up for any questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Christian, thank you very much indeed. Zoom is not my forte. As you know, we're a Teams one that side. I'm not entirely sure if we had set up the permissions on this, I'm afraid, in order to do people opening up from what we've got. So I think we can do some text questioning, but otherwise, I'm not sure we can do the video call, so my apologies for that. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time and to go through for that. I would be delighted to, if anybody had any text questions, to put them through. I think we can do them from that way.
Okay. On chat for Q&A.
On the chat for the Q&A. I'm afraid I had to get one of my much younger members of my office to set this up for me. I'm afraid I'm in Teams embedded on the Microsoft one. Okay, well, we're a limited number on today. We're doing several of these, I'm afraid, and we're doing another one tomorrow, Monday. We have different groups. I don't see any large questions coming through. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for the participation, and particularly for Rick for his ongoing support and for his thoughts both on the market. I'm particularly like, Rick, your thoughts about just the numbers of people on the electrification, or the desire to get electrification. And I think I'm going to try and find some figures about how the percentage of the world's population has come on over the last 5 years and 10 years and 15 years, because I think it would be something interesting to go back and have a look at the historical increase. But if anybody has any further questions, please, by all means, do email me directly. A copy of this will be made publicly available by the Monday morning onto our LinkedIn and onto the website. And we very much would look forward to welcoming everybody to come in as shareholders into the company. And I will look forward to catching up with everybody in due course. With that, I will thank everybody and go from there.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you both.